Misa's
With Jumbo Tsuruta's health deteriorating to the point that he could no longer be an active member of the All Japan roster, there was a major void left at the top of the promotion. Without Jumbo, Akira Taue was left as the de facto leader of what used to be Tsuruta-gun. Forcing Akira Taue to try to fill that void on his own just wasn't a fair ask of anybody. It's noticeable in matches like the February 25th tag team match between Taue and Fuchi against Misawa and Kawada. It's a good match, a real strong build-up tag for the eventual title match between Taue and Misawa, and yet, even with Kawada and Misawa having a near disastrous miscommunication in the middle of the match, they still come out with the victory with what's ostensibly a very dominant double submission. Things don't look great for Akira Taue heading into his Triple Crown Championship match against Misawa in Budokan Hall on February 28, 1993. Try as he might, he's just not in a position in his career to fill the void that Jumbo Tsuruta left behind. The title match is very good, of course. These two work well together, but it's not a title match that Misawa was ever going to lose. Misawa comes out victorious without much trouble and essentially shuts the door on his years-long rivalry against Tsuruta-gun. A change was needed in All Japan. Tsuruta-gun was dead, no longer the imposing force going up against Super Generation Army. Misawa was no longer struggling up against something. Instead, he was the champion at the top of his game. He needed a new enemy to drive him forward, a new rivalry to spark the creative direction of All Japan. The 1993 champion Carnival would prove to be one of the most significant iterations of the tournament since its return in 1991. This year's tournament featured a single block of 13 wrestlers, meaning that all the top players in the company would be squaring off in singles matches. On March 27th, Mitsuharu Misawa found himself against his regular tag team partner and best friend, Toshiaki Kawada. The match starts off urgent, with Kawada not holding back with his opening strikes. This only fires up Misawa though. He weathers the initial storm and is able to hit a Tiger Driver for a 2 count in the early moments. Kawada throws a desperation Gamengiri so hard that he hurts his own leg. He uses this brief opening to attempt to slow the match down by grounding Misawa on the mat. Kawada gets real vicious, working over Misawa's face with some brutal kicks and a facebuster to the floor. In fact, when Misawa regains the advantage briefly, it's Kawada attacking the face that puts him back into control. Kawada strings a lot of offense together in an attempt to put Misawa away, but even 2 folding powerbombs can't quite get the job done. Having hit such big offense, Kawada goes to his stretch plum submission in an attempt to tap out Misawa, whose face has been significantly weakened throughout the match. Misawa gets to the ropes though, and a frustrated Kawada starts striking the ace, who fires up to meet the challenge. It's a wonderful display of the kind of firepower Misawa's carrying when he's fed up with his opponent. Kawada blocks an attempt at a second Tiger Driver and is able to nail a third folding powerbomb, but again only gets a 2 count. Kawada continues to drop bombs, even hitting a knee drop off of the apron, but Misawa is soon able to regain the advantage and grab his patented face lock in the ring. From here, there's very little turning back for Misawa. Misawa drops bomb after bomb after bomb on Kawada, firmly back in control of the match. He's so far ahead he can afford to take a big risk, like hitting a gruesome elbow suicida to Kawada on the outside. Feeling the match slip away, Kawada throws in a few final parting shots. A lariat and a spin kick give Kawada the opening to nail Misawa with a vicious, dangerous backdrop, but that only gets a 2 count. Kawada throws another desperation Gamengiri, but this Misawa blocks and follows up with a brutal elbow shot that drops Kawada cold for the 3 count. Misawa's elbow is God. This is one of my favorite matches of the year. Physical, aggressive, and rife with the kind of tension you'd expect from 2 tag team partners jostling for prominence. A great match, 4.5 stars for me. This is far more urgent than the October 92 title match, thanks in large part to the 30-minute time limit placed on Champion Carnival matches. But there's clearly something brewing beneath. This violence hints at something greater than just a need to get a quick win in a tournament block. There's frustration here from Kawada, a real sense of desperation to get ahead of his partner. He couldn't get it done here, but the only thing Kawada's ever known in his life is to keep moving forward. A couple of weeks after the Misawa-Kawada Carnival match, Kawada finds himself squaring off against a familiar foe, someone who similarly suffered a recent major loss to Mitsuharu Misawa, Akira Taue. For the last 3 years, as the lieutenants of their respective stables, these two have been engaged in a competitive rivalry. And yet now, with Jumbo Tsuruta gone and a new ace cemented on top of the company, both men find themselves plateauing in their quest for singles greatness in All Japan. If you have access to the full 30-minute handheld version of this match, I'd say that you can probably skip it. The first 15 minutes are pretty standard without too much to make it particularly noteworthy. With the last 15 or so minutes captured on the official broadcast version of this match, you're seeing the match's best qualities without having to sit through all the preamble. That being said, the back half of this match is great. Exactly the kind of big bombs and tense moments that you'd expect from these two. Nothing too intricate going on here, just a real simple to understand clashing of two forces, trying to figure out who'll hit the decisive blow before someone can no longer get back up. Both men get a lot of their signature offense in, but the match ends with a 30-minute time limit draw. But the aftermath of this match is far more important than what happens between the bells. Having beaten each other all to hell, Kawada extends a hand out to Taue. The gesture is returned, and the two show some respect for each other after years of battling it out. It's a simple gesture, but one that's granted weight by the history that these two share. There's a kinship there of battles fought together, an understanding of what they've put each other through, and what might happen if they work together instead of against each other. With a simple handshake, the Holy Demon Army was born. Toshiaki Kawada would officially leave Super Generation Army and form a new tag team with old foe Akira Taue. While these two did occasionally wrestle together in Super Generation Army in 1990, this new iteration of their pairing feels like something else entirely. The Holy Demon Army would make their debut in Korakuen Hall on May 14th, 1993, against the team of Kenta Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. This match fucks. No two ways about it. It's an explosive bout that goes at full speed to get across one simple idea. The Holy Demon Army are here, and they will wreck absolutely anyone in their way. There's really no better team to help facilitate that idea than someone as infinitely sympathetic as Kikuchi and someone as fiery as Kobashi. This is a great Kobashi performance, a great display of the kind of expressive, hard-hitting determination that's made him so endearing to fans for generations now. But even with a fired-up Kobashi, the Super Generation Army contingent just can't seem to sustain any momentum in this match. Kobashi and Kikuchi both get battered and thrown around here. Mercy is far from the minds of either Taue or Kawada, and they run their opponents through a vicious arsenal of offense. The match ends with Kawada and Taue nailing stereo Nodowa Otoshis on their opponents, a signal of their newfound bond. This is a delightful match, one of the most succinct and efficient introductions to a new tag team pairing that I've ever seen. One match in, and Taue and Kawada instantly feel like they might just be the best tag team in the world. This one's a bit of a hidden gem, so I highly recommend you go out of your way to see it if you haven't already. 4.25 stars for me. After their decisive debut as a team, Kawada and Taue capitalized quickly. Just 6 days later, they defeated the Miracle Violence Connection to become the World Tag Team Champions. Already, these two feel like the most dangerous combination in the entire company, perhaps even the world. All it took was for Toshiaki Kawada to turn his back on his best friend. That injustice could not stand unchallenged, which is why on June 1st, 1993, in the main event at Budokan Hall, we got the first in what would become a historic series of tag team matches between the Holy Demon Army and the team of Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi. The opening moments of this match are much more dedicated to building up the atmosphere of this first-time tag encounter as opposed to setting the stage for any of the action to come. The initial confrontation between Kawada and Misawa is tense, but it's all pretty standard stuff, all things considered. Narratively, nothing really sets in until Kawada and Taue are able to isolate Kobashi to work a heat segment on him. Stretched out in this way, the heat segment on Kobashi doesn't quite live up to the immediacy of the Holy Demon Army's debut tag. A lot of this segment does slow things down, even if none of it is ever really bad. The segment is also weirdly broken up by a brief Misawa tag-in that serves little purpose, especially when the next segment is another extended control on Kobashi. Luckily, when Kobashi does get the hot tag, it leads to a fired-up ace just running through both Kawada and Taue. While Kobashi and Misawa pick up steam in this back half, nailing a lot of great offense on the tag champs, there's the distinct sense that Kawada and Taue are a far more in-sync pairing. Both men are always right nearby to make a save at just the right time. Taue in particular is just such a great game changer for his team, constantly finding the opportunity to insert himself with some major cutoffs to stunt any kind of momentum that Kobashi and Misawa are trying to build. In the end, the onslaught is just too much, and a string of brutal moves onto Kobashi culminates in a folding powerbomb from Kawada for the victory. This is a great match, but still far from the heights that these four would reach later in the decade. The back half is incredibly strong, but it's not crazy to say that they probably missed their peak by about 5 minutes or so. There's also a little bit of dead air in the opening heat segments that could have used some editing, but overall, I still think it's really great. 4 stars. It's the first step towards an era that these four men would come to define. The 4 pillars of heaven, holding up All Japan in its most beloved and revered period. With a win on paper over the Triple Crown champion, it's no great shock that Toshiaki Kawada was named the #1 contender to Mitsuharu Misawa's gold. In the month leading up to the title match, the interactions that Misawa and Kawada have in the build-up tags get increasingly tense and heated. Their rivalry is the highlight of every match they're in, and it makes the anticipation for their eventual title match palpable in a way that it just couldn't be in 1992. The most notable of these build-up tags happened on July 28th, the night before the title match. Super Generation Army took on the Holy Demon Army in an 8-man elimination gauntlet tag match, wherein the person who took the fall in each tag bout would then be replaced by the next wrestler in queue for each team. Unsurprisingly, the final tag pairing of the night came down to Misawa and Kobashi, once again taking on Kawada and Taue. Misawa and Kawada start things off, and the intensity between them is so strong. Every time they meet, it just leaves one dying to see the singles bout to come. There's also some real great Kobashi and Kawada interactions that continue Kobashi's hot streak of really great performances in 1993. But the main thread worth noting here is when Taue gets his hands on Misawa, he absolutely destroys Misawa's arm. It is a vicious and targeted attack meant to weaken the champion just one night before he has to defend the title. The match ends with Super Generation Army getting a measure of revenge from the June Tag title match as Kobashi gets the victory with a moonsault onto Taue. The stage is set for the first Kawada-Misawa singles match since their split earlier in the year. July 29th, Budokan Hall. Kawada's second shot at Misawa's Triple Crown Championship. The match starts slow and steady, allowing the atmosphere to simmer. Kawada grits his teeth through an early elbow strike, showing his bravado in the face of the move that knocked him out in March. Kawada throws some great opening salvos here with a stiff kick right to Misawa's throat. As we've seen in the past, however, Misawa isn't afraid to throw big shots of his own. He nails an elbow and a dropkick to take Kawada to the outside. He even follows up with another elbow to knock Kawada off the apron and into the barricade. It takes a dropkick of his own for Kawada to regain control. From here, Kawada starts to attack the arm, focusing in on the weakness that Taue had set up for him the night before. This serves the additional benefit of trying to neutralize the immense power that Misawa has behind his elbow strikes. It's not the best arm work in the world. Even Taue's attack the night before came off more vicious, but it's a sensible tactic for Kawada to take. The problem is that Misawa still has legs and he has no issues kicking his way through Kawada to regain the advantage. Although Kawada tries to cut him off, Misawa shows that he's willing to match Kawada blow for blow, even as Kawada starts hitting his signature kicks to the head. There's something weighty about this moment in the match right here. When Misawa starts hitting Kawada back, there's a kind of realization that dawns on Kawada in the moment. For just the briefest moment of clarity, it sinks in that there's no more respectful, friendly competition here. From here on out, this is war. A violent struggle for dominance where only one man can emerge victorious. This is no longer just about the gold for Kawada. What good is friendship to him if it means living in another man's shadow? There's no turning back. Not ever. The only way out is forward. The match takes on a more wild tone after this moment, with Kawada clearly being backed into a sense of desperation before a big elbow from Misawa knocks him back down. Misawa furthers the attack with a pair of splashes off the top, neither of which get the job done. Firmly in control, he runs through his signature offense looking for the one blow that'll put Kawada down. Misawa goes for the Tiger Suplex, the same move that ended their title match in '92, and Kawada's panic over the move is clear. He throws a wild Enzui Lariato to escape the move, and immediately goes for his own signature maneuvers to try and put Misawa away. All thought of arm work or sticking to a single strategy are gone from Kawada's mind. It's all or nothing from this point on. From having a calculated target on Misawa early in the match, Kawada's new strategy becomes just punching Misawa in the face and following up with a big bomb. Repetition damns Kawada though, as Misawa blocks the third punch attempt and drops Kawada with an elbow strike. From this point, it's not a question of if Misawa wins, but simply when. Misawa finally nails the Tiger Suplex, which only gets a 2. A brutal rolling elbow knocks Kawada flat. In spite of Taue's attack the night before, in spite of Kawada's early arm work, the fact remains, Misawa's elbow is God. And although Kawada survives, he is virtually lifeless at this point. Kawada's last gasp comes with a manic double leg takedown that leads into a dangerous backdrop, but Kawada's far too battered to even attempt a cover. Kawada has one final Gamengiri in him, but soon after, Misawa just drops the man onto his head with some of the most disgusting German suplexes you've ever seen in your life. Kawada lunges again, but a final German and the Tiger suplex end things for him here. If we're going to limit our discussion to just in-ring work, then this is the slightest bit lesser than the 1992 title match. The arm work, while sensible, does slow things down a little too much for my liking. Kawada's arm attack wasn't half as urgent or vicious as Taue's was the night before, which did serve to suck the life out of those control segments a bit. The back half, though, is, of course, wonderful. Brutal and exciting in all the ways you expect 90s All Japan Kings Road matches to be. 4.25 stars, easily one of the best matches in the company all year. But outside of that, the more I think about this match, the more it fills me with a certain sense of sadness. The first two Kawada-Misawa title matches have such a powerful sense of futility and tragedy to them. You just watch them and it's so obvious that Kawada's not on Misawa's level. It's futile how hard he fights, how badly he wants it, all the things that he will do to win, and yet how simple it is for Misawa to put him down. In this match as well, there's a greater sense of something being lost, other than just the Triple Crown title. Kawada and Misawa were best friends in high school, competitors and rivals, sure, but friends all the same, partners. After this match, there's no reclaiming that anymore. The tragedy of pro wrestling is that by the very nature of the art form, violence is the means by which all matters of morality and conflict are resolved. This matches Kawada and Misawa's dedication to that path of violence. The King's Road is paved with broken friendships and battered bodies. It's a long road that these two have only just begun to truly fathom. From now on, it's the only path they'll ever know. The last match we'll discuss today is also the last All Japan match of 1993. It's the finals of the annual Real World Tag League, with the winners taking home the vacant World Tag Team Championships. Right off the bat, Misawa and Kobashi feel like a much more polished and in-sync team than they did in June. Their early combo attacks on Taue do a lot to show how much they've progressed in the last half year as a unit. Despite their early flash, however, the Holy Demon Army is yet again able to isolate Kobashi in the ring to control an early heat segment. Even here, though, Kobashi shows a little more defiance and grit against Kawada and Taue's attacks than he did in June. The turning point for this match comes when he nails a single leg kick on Kawada, whose knee immediately gives out. Kawada panics instantly, responding to the injury with a flurry of punches, but this is only met with Kobashi dropping Kawada to the mat and punching him in the bad knee. Fully aware of the match slipping out of his grasp, Kawada hits a Gamengiri on Kobashi as Taue rushes in to try to buy them time. Misawa soon tags in though, and Kawada's filled with too much pride to back down. It doesn't end well for him as he eats an elbow and a tiger driver for his trouble. It takes a lariat from Kawada to stunt Misawa's momentum. Taue does his best to pick up the slack for the team, throwing Misawa around and even nailing the Nodowa Otoshi backdrop combo with Kawada, but Kobashi is there to break it up. Misawa elbows his way through both Kawada and Taue, and Kobashi continues to assert himself, even nailing Taue with one of his own signature hot shots across the top rope. A big moonsault off the top only gets a 2, however. As soon as Kawada gets the tag back in, he drops Kobashi with a vicious, dangerous backdrop, but his damaged leg prevents him from capitalizing with a cover. Another attempt gets thwarted by Kobashi, allowing Misawa to tag in. Kawada nails Misawa with a sick spin kick and follows up with a German. But again, his leg gives out and he's unable to complete the bridge to pin Misawa. Instead, Kawada is forced to go to the stretch plum to try and end Misawa, with Taue close by to play support and keep Kobashi at bay. Eventually, Kobashi does break free, however, and saves Misawa. Kawada looks to hit his signature offense, but the bad leg stops him at every turn. Kobashi is relentless, targeting the weakness as well, even locking in a Texas Cloverleaf to further damage Kawada's leg. Kobashi misses a moonsault, however, giving Kawada the tiniest opening. He seems about to tag out, but again, Kobashi dives for the leg to keep him in place. Kawada gets one last Gamengiri in, but Kobashi pushes through the pain to nail a lariat. From there, it's academic. Taue makes a last-ditch attempt to right the sinking ship and gets punished immediately. A beautifully coordinated finishing attack from Misawa allows Kobashi to nail Kawada with a backdrop for the 3 count and the victory. I love this match. It's easily the best match in All Japan all year, filled to the brim with the kind of hard-hitting and brutal action you want from these 4, elevated with one of the all-time great leg-selling performances by Toshiaki Kawada. There's so much going on in this match that just puts a wonderful end to All Japan's year in 1993. Kawada once again paying for his betrayal and being completely blown out of the water as Taue tries to pick the pieces back up. Kobashi coming into his own with a dominant performance to top his best year yet. Misawa ending the year with both the top titles in All Japan, leaving absolutely zero doubt in anyone's mind about who the ace in the company is. When people speak in reverential tones about the 4 pillars of heaven, it's because of matches like this that accomplish so much with an almost effortless confidence and clarity. An amazing match that everyone should see. 5 stars. A classic. 1993 ends with Toshiaki Kawada paying for his sins. Despite early success from turning his back on Misawa, he ends the year having lost both his chance at the Triple Crown and failing to recapture the tag team titles. He ends 93 in a worse position than he ended 92. No gold to his name, as his former teammates celebrate with the World Tag Team titles. But don't expect Kawada to slink off into the shadows. The only thing he knows how to do is to keep pressing forward. There'll be opportunities to come. 93 might have ended badly for Toshiaki Kawada, but there's always next year. Thank you so much to everyone for watching and reaching the end of the video. And of course, I have to send a real special shout out to all my supporters on Ko-fi. Thank you to the one-time supporters in Brian, K-Man, Juan C. Gonzalez, Thurman, put your dongers up or I'll shoot, and Thomas Harrison. And a huge, huge thank you to my monthly supporters in Eddie Roberts, James Draper, Chick Fritz, Don Kiger, Matt Brummett, Jacob Dickens, Spiders in My Bed, Henry, Tyler Kuhn Williams, Don O'Matic, Joe Humphreys, Arch Stanton, Timothy R. Buchner, Kid Kingpin, Smart Down Podcast, In the Lane, Captain Jack Heartless, Christopher Jackson, and Brendan McCarthy. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much for showing support and watching the video. You guys are great. Thank you, and have a good one.